Hi, it's Lynn Shuck, Healing and Balance. You'll see Lexi the Griegle periodically meandering through because that's how we roll. We are going to look at chair and squatting and some of the differences. So this might be a little bit longer of a video than many of the ones that I usually share. But I want to clarify what they are. They have different purposes. I specifically teach chair in my yoga classes. Squatting, I might work on with my clients. I might work on chair with my clients. But I don't tend to teach squatting in my classes so much because those are yoga classes. Also, one other caveat, I am an Aishin's yoga teacher. My approach to chair might not be the same as in another yoga class. It's from my lineage, it's what I teach. Similarly, squatting has lots of different variations. I'm teaching a particular mechanical way of working in it based on things that are missing in our bodies, specifically strength in the back of the body and a constant tucked under contracted pelvic floor that needs some extension. So I'm working on those things when I approach this. There's lots of ways to squat, and in fact, the more you're squatting in your day, the better. You want to keep as much range of motion in all these joints as you can and the strength to get down and get back up. Having said all that, chair pose. As I'm doing this, I'll be facing sideways, but what I want you to notice is I have my feet hip width apart, meaning ASIS bones straight down to my ankle bones. That's two vertical lines. My outer edges of my feet are parallel, knees pointed forward. As I go to bend my knees should not roll in or roll out, nor should my feet roll in or roll out. That's what you could see from the front. I'm setting up to the side now. In chair pose, Uttkatasana in Sanskrit. Chair pose in Aishin's yoga flexes at three joints fairly evenly, meaning around the same time they all flex. That is different from squatting, where you're saving the ankle flexion till later. Chair pose, you're flexing at the ankle, the knee, and the hip. If you didn't flex at one of them, the pose gets distorted. So say I flex at my ankles and at my knees, but not at my hips, I end up in this hinge position, much more like a Martha Graham dance pose. If I bend at the hips and at the knees, but not at the ankles, now I'm headed more toward what you're going to see later in squatting. So in chair pose, the shin bones press forward. I'm flexing at the ankle and the knee and the hip. My knees and hips go either side of my ankles, and I'm accordion pleating down. So as I do this, I still want more weight in my heels than in the front of my feet. I want to get as much ankle flexion as I can, pressing my shin bones toward my feet and pressing my thigh bones back behind me. So my butt should feel like it's sticking out a little bit. I'm not forcing it that way, but I don't lose this curve. So it shouldn't get tucked under and be your back reaching behind you. It's your butt reaching behind you. And then we come up. One more time, the shins press forward, the thighs press back, you maintain that curve. You also create a little bit of lift in the upper body. So it's an upper spinal curve that you're changing, not a crunch in the lower back. You're using your belly to support that lower back, but you're changing the curve in the upper back. This is what's called a dome in Aishin's yoga. And when you come up, I want you to press down through your heels to come up. One last forward-facing thing. While you're down there, you could squeeze the very top of your thigh bones in as though there's a ball there. You could even put a ball there, but not let your knees move. You'll feel the pelvic floor engage a little bit, but it's engaged while it's being extended, as opposed to engaged while it's tucked under. Pelvic floor is extended when the hip gets into flexion. That's chair pose. That's chair pose. I didn't talk about the arms. You can do all sorts of things with the arms. I'm talking about the lower body and the torso and what goes on in the legs and the torso. Squatting, as I hinted at before, starts with keeping your shins vertical. So your knees do not track forward. You are not starting with ankle flexion. You're starting with hip and knee flexion. And you're taking your butt as far back and as low as you can. Notice I'm using my hands and reaching them forward to counterbalance that. And you can even see, even working on it, my knees still track forward, but I want to keep them back. I'm trying to keep as much weight in my heels as I can, and this is as low as I go, because this is as much support as I have. Strong as I've gotten, I still can't get much lower without my knees tracking forward, so I want to keep those knees pulling back. Ways to work on that to get lower and get stronger, which I've been doing. You can grab inside a door frame and put your hands on either side of a door frame. You can grab the kitchen sink. I'm going to grab onto the couch here because it's pretty heavy. You could hang onto your couch, and you see I can get much lower with my butt without my knees tracking forward. And while my arms are doing quite a bit of work, I'm also building some strength in my butt and in my thighs. And I'm going to press down through my heels to come up, just like I did in chair. You don't want to come into your toes and get that into your knees. You want to stay in your heels. There are other ways to work on that pose. So that was saying, how low do you go without letting your shins move forward, your knees move forward? What happens if you let the knees move forward when you finally have to? And if your heels have to come up, you let your heels come up. I don't have a lot of ankle flexion. I have very tight calves. So I go as low as I can go, and then my knees finally start to track forward, and my heels have to come up. And now I'm in a squat. Now, notice again, I've maintained the curve. A lot of people squat, I have to hold on to do this, and tuck under. Tucking under tightens up that pelvic floor, doesn't keep it extended, and that's an issue in our whole country. Lots of pelvic floor disorders, and part of that is from never being an extension. So you want to keep that curve. For me, that means heels off the floor. I have to do that for now. If I get here and I'm kind of relaxed here, I'm not using a lot of muscle, it's more joints. I want to build into the muscle. So holding on again, I'm going to pull my shins back to vertical, and I'm getting to that same place again, and I could relax. There are other ways to work on that. You can put something under your heels, a folded up blanket. This is about 1.5 inches high block, and you could come down putting something behind your knees to support the knee joints. And again, maintain that curve. It's a little easier for me to be here. I could actually relax into this. And that's the killer. This is a relaxed position. This is a resting pose in other cultures. We've lost the ability entirely. So you want to find ways to work on it. There are numerous other ways to work on it. It could be that your biggest issue isn't the strength, but is the tightness in your calves and your feet, in which case go look at my calf stretch video or the double calf stretch video. It could be that your knees and your hips are still really tight, so you might work on just bringing some mobility to those joints. And I have lots of ways to do that. Go sifting through some of the poses. Squatting for everyone is another video you can look at. It's a way to trap your shins at a chair, and that way you can tell if they track forward if you don't have a big mirror to look at. I think that's everything for now. There's a lot to unpack there. I unpacked a lot of it, but not all of it by any means. And again, that was a very specific squat and an Aishin's Yoga chair pose. There's lots of ways to squat. And frankly, I'd rather have you squatting however you can and getting back up and maintaining that joint mobility and the strength to get down and get back up. If you're able to do that, check out what you can do while you're down there. Shift your weight. Go from one foot to the other. Go to kneeling and squatting combined. Lots of different ways so that it becomes something that's a pose of use, resting or working, instead of an exercise where you do 10 squats and then you're done. It's really important in our bodies to maintain all this joint mobility. It's really important in our bodies to get that hip to flex, pelvis to flex forward so the pelvic floor can extend. It's really important to keep that strength in the muscles that we don't use so much because we're busy sitting on them all the time. And it's not our fault, it's the culture we live in. We've adapted to it. But these are some ways to move out of it. Keep in mind, again, very specific version of this. Do what you can with it. If you have questions, leave it in the comments below, and I'd love to hear from you. I think that's everything. Like I said, it's kind of a long video, but there's a lot in here. Yeah, I think that's everything. Ready? Go.